Today I'm going to be working on a little piece of Earthbound fan art. It's a little plywood painting. On this side we've got Jeff and Pooh, and on the right side we've got Ness and Paula. This game is extremely popular nowadays. But when it first came out, it only had a little cult following. And I know that's kind of a hipstery thing to talk about. Back in my day, before this game was popular. But it's true. Not everybody was into Earthbound. It was kind of awkward. It wasn't particularly visually stunning. But there's something really magical about the way it was written. You didn't really kill enemies, you just sort of knocked them out or chased them off. You know, there was always some weird little piece of text that described what happened when you won the fight. This was, of course, Mother 2 in Japan. The second video game directed by Shigesato Itoi. As most of you probably know, the first Mother was intended for a US release, but they shelved it. Decided to wait for Earthbound because I guess they didn't think the North American market would be receptive to a game like that so late in the Nintendo's life cycle. So Earthbound shares a lot of the same qualities as Mother, with a lot of stuff added on. The soundtrack is also particularly beloved by fans. Anyone who's watching this video is probably familiar with the name Catherine Warwick, who was a 14-year-old British girl picked to sing 3 of the songs on the original Mother soundtrack, which was itself a wholly unique undertaking in its time. Sort of spellbinding CD of really uplifting, emotional songs about believing in your friends. I often find myself singing Pollyanna to my daughter when I'm trying to rock her to sleep. There's something just perfect about that song. I don't think I'm going to fill this video with too much trivia because That's kind of beating a dead horse at this point. And I didn't do very much research. In fact, I haven't actually played this game for about 10 years now. When we first got it, we rented it from Blockbuster when that was still a thing. And I loved it so much that we rented it 3 times. But I ran into a bit of a problem as I got to the very end, which is that if you're not careful, Ness might not build up his speed stat. And if you're in a pinch for time, it's kind of hard to beat the game when Ness is constantly missing as he swings at the Starman. And my other characters couldn't carry the whole team without him, so I just kept dying over and over. Normally, I would have just spent a couple days grinding off and on, but I didn't have that luxury. We had to bring the game back, and my dad wouldn't let me run it a 4th time because I might as well have bought it. So I spent a lot of time thinking about that game, wondering about it. If I was smart, I would have bought a copy while there was still time, because those go for a lot of money. But like some people who've had a similar experience, we weren't able to have a new game system unless we paid for it ourselves, which usually meant selling the old system and all the games at a garage sale. And when you're a little kid, time seems to go on a little bit longer. We were all bored with our old NES games and then our old Super Nintendo games. We were in a big old hurry to get an N64. And to this day, I still don't own a Super Nintendo. Collecting for it's a bit out of my budget, so I collect for the Genesis instead. And I don't even think I could accurately say that I collect for it. I just have a few games. Games that are important to me. If you've never played Rocket Knight Adventures, that's an amazing game. I don't have any role-playing game. No, I do have one role-playing game for the Genesis, but I haven't finished it because it was designed a little bit poorly. It's an action RPG called Landstalker. My friend Zach insisted that I had to play Landstalker. It was his favorite role-playing game for the Genesis. So I found a copy for $15, and I like it, but there's a lot of platforming puzzles. For some reason I do not understand. They didn't program the protagonist sprite to have a shadow. And you can't platform in 3D very effectively without a shadow because there's no context. You're just moving around willy-nilly in 3 dimensions without any way of knowing where you're going. So that's not very fun. But maybe I'll pick it up again soon. Once you have a kid, it's a little hard to find time for that. I've been playing through Metroid Prime again instead. It had been a while since I played it last. So this piece of wood I'm painting on, probably should have sanded it down before I started painting characters on it. Because the paint I'm using is just a cheap craft paint. It really just wants to tear right off of this awful, cheap, sort of fake wood grain paneling. I mean, it's just worst. But I think I might go back over it with a little Mod Podge, like some glossy Mod Podge. Because also this paint is matte finish, and this coating, this like wood grain coating, is very glossy, as you can see from this uh, sort of specular highlight. A lot of Earthbound fans say that Jeff here is their favorite character in the game, and I kind of have to agree with that. He's just sort of this, you know, stereotypically bookish type. He's an inventor. Oops. So smudge that. I don't have the steadiest hand, so I often find myself resting my pinky here on the surface I'm drawing on, which lends itself to a lot of mistakes. Mm-hmm. This recording is being done after about five 5 hours of work on this. Maybe less than 5, maybe 3. For some reason, this shade of white that I'm using is sort of ivory shade. It's a little translucent for my tastes. I wish I had something maybe a little more opaque for this. Or I could have looked up something. I could have found something more opaque if I really wanted to. But it's a little translucent, so I've had to put down about 6 layers now, which is kind of a drag. A lot of people don't understand when you're working with acrylic paints that you have to put down so many layers. Just layer after layer. You paint the same painting probably a total of 4 times. I suppose some people have methods to get around that, but maybe I'm just dumb. Maybe there's a way and I just didn't look it up. Cause I still believe Miracles, I swear I've seen a few. And the time will surely come when you will share my point of view. I believe in silver linings, and that's why I believe in you. Spoiler alert, in case you don't want to hear this. You got 3, 2, 1. Here comes the spoiler. One of my favorite parts of this game is the unique way in which you have to beat the boss, Gygas. And this is another thing you didn't see in a lot of games at the time. Up until then, you fought the boss. You fought him until you beat him. You don't beat Gygas by fighting. You beat him by praying, which just really impressed me the first time I encountered that. It's sort of similar with the first Mother game, in that you beat, I think his name is Gige, and I don't know if he's Gygas' original form. Like if you beat Gige, it becomes Gygas in Earthbound, because it's subtitled something like Gygas' Revenge or Gygas Attacks. I can't remember. But anyway, I think it's Gygas. But Gige, you beat using these 8 melodies. And feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. I think the 8 melodies were sung to him by his mother, whatever that may be. There's sort of there's some area that's kind of analogous to Magic Hand. It might be Magic Hand, but in like a different way. But yeah, you beat him by singing him the songs of his childhood, or the song. And on that soundtrack we were talking about earlier, those 8 melodies. The song is called 8 Melodies, but you can hear a full church choir sing that song, which is just amazing. It's like a boys' choir, I think, like St. Paul's Cathedral Boys' Choir. And they use that song in the Japanese commercial for the game, which is also amazing. It's a very cinematic commercial. The Earthbound commercial in Japan is a little less impressive. The Mother, the commercial for the first Mother is amazing. Probably wash up the brush. Let's work a little on. I think he's a monk, and he lives in this very elaborate looking. It looks like a temple for maybe Ganesha. There's some elements statues out in the front of it. It's a very beautiful bit of video game art. Spirituality is tied in to a handful of video games, not many, but or maybe it is a lot of them. I like temples, I like churches, I like holy places in video games. I think they're fascinating. You get the impression there's something solemn there, even if it is a little silly. I realized on my last ASMR video that I was blowing into the microphone, which is a bit embarrassing. It's a bit unprofessional. So I may have turned off some potential subscribers with all that garbage microphone buzz. So if I did, my apology. Speaking of audio issues and retro video, Lee Alexander has a binaural microphone now. So I'm getting really excited to see some lo-fi Let's Plays from her using that equipment. She actually is the one that introduced me to the ASMR community. I may have mentioned this in a previous video, but she said that people said to her that they got some unintentional ASMR from her videos. ASMR, what is that? But I think I knew the minute she said it that she was talking about this sort of weird tingly phenomenon that we all agree may or may not exist, but we feel it anyway. I still have trouble finding people who report experiencing ASMR outside of the internet. I don't actually know anyone. I have maybe one acquaintance who experiences it. That's it. Just the one. Is it really that uncommon of a phenomenon? I always thought more people would feel it. I heard it can be as high as 1 in 4, but that hasn't been my experience. I watched ASMR Darling's video the other day about how she was sort of outed um, as an ASMR artist by a friend who didn't understand ASMR. She thought it was an erotic thing. And that seems to be the prevailing interpretation by people who don't experience it that they think it's a fetish. And I can see why they would jump to that conclusion. But that is a false conclusion. Because ASMR is about relaxing. It's a little hard to relax if you're getting excited in that way. At least for me. Mostly, and again, I'm preaching to the choir, but mostly it's just about feeling cared for. At least that's why I enjoy it so much. Just feeling like someone cares, like they want to take care of you. And I have people like that in my life. You know what I mean. It's nice to have the attention. And for people who suffer under debilitating stress or anxiety, it can be a very nice way to get something that's missing from your life. Like I said, for me, it's additive. I'm very lucky to have a stable life and a stable family. But some people don't have that luxury. Probably going to wrap it up here in a little bit, but we can hang out for a little bit longer. Hmm, that's weird. What is that line for? May have to fix something later. Guess I probably should have brought reference pictures. Oh well. Alright, let's say we call it a day, huh? Thanks for stopping by and watching. I will see you guys